Hello, and welcome to A VO's Journey. My name is Anthony Pica, and this channel is all about helping the new and upcoming voiceover artists grow their business and sidestep all the crazy things that I seem to step on. Happy Monday, everybody. It's good to be live today. We are in the beginning of the first full week in November, and I thought that we could talk about voice acting and some different practice tips that I have for you. This is by no means an exhaustive list. This is just a few tips that I figure I could squeeze into this particular show today. And as a side note, I want to make sure that you should have, whether it's a notebook, whether it's a, form of your notes on your computer, but you should have like a little bag of practice tricks and tips that you keep as you come across them so that you can go back and use them. Okay. All right. So the whole purpose of practicing clearly is to get better, but I think the other thing here is you're practicing also so that you can get more work. Okay. All right. Good deal. Thank you guys for joining. It's good to see you. Let's dive into voice acting practice tip number 1. And that is, I want you to make sure that when you practice, you have a specific goal in mind. So what I mean by this is that when we get into these other tips where they're actionable, every time you practice, have a specific reason for what you are trying to accomplish or specific goal. For example, maybe you are trying to get better at delivering a documentary read or something, right? So like your goal is to, do 10 different practice reads, and it is specifically geared towards getting better at reading documentaries. Okay, that's your whole purpose. And everything you do is based on it. Okay. Also, you could base a speed. You could a time, or you want to have a cadence or sound like this because you notice that this is what people are asking you for, and you don't feel like you're that good at it for right now. So I just want you to point out that the first thing always have a specific goal. Okay, whether it's a commercial reads or radio, whether it's e-learning, audiobooks, whatever you're doing, have a specific goal. Okay. All right. That's tip number 1. All right. So tip number 2, I've got them written down here on my notepad here so I could be easy to make sure I remember them. All right. Practice tip number 2. I call this word isolation. And what I like to do is when I'm having a problem and I feel like expressing an idea or trying to tone down a little bit what I'm doing and be more expressive with an idea, what I like to do is I like to take a sentence, I like to take a copy and sentences in there, and I like to isolate a word in a sentence. And what I like to do is I like to try to keep that entire sentence the same, right, in pitch and volume. And then the one word that I've chosen, I add some sort of expressiveness to it, whether I go up in pitch or I go down in pitch, whether I pause before or I pause after. Okay. Whether I elongate the word or I make the word short. All of these different ways of expressiveness, and there's hundreds of them, they can help you when you isolate a single word, really bring that point home, and you don't overdo it. A lot of times we can really overdo things, over deliver, over the top, as they call it, too much. Okay. Too much energy, too much expressiveness, where we can be subtle and really overexpress one thing. Okay. So tip number 2, I like to call it word isolation. It's a very simple thing. You can do that. You can just take some copy, record, pick a word. I mean, you could even pick a phrase, but pick a word, go through it, even tone, and then that one word, add some sort of different expressiveness to it, and hear how it sounds, right? See what the feeling you get back from listening to it. You'll be very surprised. Most of us, well, a lot of us, if we're just starting out too, and we narrate, we overdo all of the talking instead of choosing specific points to really punch home. Okay. All right, cool. Hey, you guys, Greg, TJ, Woody, B-Dog at 45. Thank you guys for joining. Okay, so that was tip number 2. Tip number 3, I love this one. Practice with different postures. Now, I've said this, but I guarantee you so many people don't try because they just might think it's silly, but it really does make a difference. So whether you're sitting or standing, I mean, I'm sitting right now just because this is my editing station, but I actually stand for all my recording, including my audiobooks. I do that for a couple of reasons. One, I do that because I realized doing this full time that I could sit like forever. And I don't like, and I'm realizing I need to stand a lot more. So I try to stand a lot more now, even when I'm narrating audiobooks. But what I mean by postures is I've talked before about how your physiology, all right, the outward expression of your body, what form it's in. What I mean by that is, whether you are, you're kind of slouched forward or you're up with lots of posture, whether you got a happy face on, whether you got a mean sad face on, like all these different expressions, outward expressions, your physiology. Okay, practice doing copy with different types of postures, whether you're slouched over, whether you're up and excited, facial expressions, the way you hold your arms. Like, for example, like there's a lot of, what is it, like military people or whatever that, sometimes, or some sort of important person put their hands behind their back and walk around, their nose is up in the air, do all of these things, practice with that type of posture and see how your copy sounds. What's interesting is you will notice quite a big of difference in the way you do it, and it will allow you to quickly be able to recreate what you're trying to voice on the drop of on the drop of just emotion that you create with your body. And in the end, especially when we are being directed by others and we have to be able to go into a situation and perform right away, we don't get to practice these things in front of those people, but we need to practice those things when we are not in front of them. And posture is a great way to practice. Okay. All right. Tip number 4. I like to call this one, it's identify, listen, and practice. So what I like to do is, as I'm going through, me, I like to at least make sure I have a wide range of things that I can sell to people. So what I like to do is I like to identify a certain style, like we were talking about documentaries, right? I like to identify a documentary. Then I like to listen. So I go on YouTube, wherever I can find different documentaries, and I listen. I listen to the cadence of the voiceover. I listen to the tone, meaning are they kind of speaking matter of fact? Are they speaking passionately? Are they doing more than one in their delivery? So I listen to that. Okay. And then I go and I try to imitate, remember, not impersonate, but I'm trying to imitate, which the difference is I'm trying to imitate the style, the tone, the cadence. Cadence is a big thing. Many of us really just have a trouble with cadence because we can't recreate a cadence in our mind while we're speaking out loud that is natural or is more towards that specific style. Because styles, right? They all have different rules. Just like a documentary has different rules than a commercial or a whiteboard animation video, especially something where you're trying to do something where you're a real person trying to be more real, okay, as opposed to, an e-learning script about, Ford carburetors, right? I mean, those are really specifically different, and it's important for you to be able to choose a style, listen to how that voiceover is going, and then try to imitate the cadence, the tonality. All right. You interpret that and you make it something that you're practicing often so that you can recreate it in your own way. That's so important because if you do that, not just with, I just use documentary, but if you can do that with multiple things, then you can start adding so much more to your repertoire, and then you're going to be able to book more business. Okay. All right. So that was tip number 4. Tip number 5 is this is kind of like my last main tip for today. Like I said, this is not exhaustive. We could go on forever. But tip number 5 is I like to say, do it wrong to do it right. So basically what I mean by that is you've got to play. You've got to get in your booth. You've got to turn on the record button and you've got to play. You got to try things that you never thought you would do because you need to start pushing yourself. I have to tell you this, every time I have gone beyond a plateau on something or I've reached something, whether it's been in my business or my life, I'm sure you can connect with this. I had to do something not comfortable, or I had to try something not comfortable, at least just for a little bit. And then when you get to the next part, you realize it's not that bad, but we had to push past that barrier. So a lot of times when I'm working with voice acting students, I have them do silly things. And what I mean by this is maybe, you get a piece of copy that's clearly serious and you read it like you're being goofy, or you read something funny or a comedy or something more upbeat or personal and you read it, really serious, or, you read it in an accent, or you read it as a pirate, or you read it as a funny character voice you do. Something to loosen yourself up and start to also find your voice. Because in the end, a lot of us, especially if we haven't been doing this for a while, we're trying to find our voice. And to do that, we've got to test out and sample a whole bunch of different ways of doing it. And the only way to do that is to play. Go out and play, get scripts, turn on the record button and record them in 20 different ways with different accents, with different feelings. Just try it. I know you might feel like it's not a reason, but remember the first goal I said, or first tip, is to have a purpose. The purpose is to figure out or find something that you have not found yet in your voice. I think that they say that there's like so many different expressions. I don't know how many hundreds or thousands there are that we can make with our face, right? But we can do that same amount with the tone, the pitch, the speed, the volume, the expressiveness of our voice. And the more that we can call upon it and find it and then offer it, like package it up and offer it, the more sellable, the more in demand we are going to be. All right. So I hope these help. If, like I said, if you have a notepad or if you have a notes on your computer or whatever, where you have your own little stash of techniques and tips on practicing, write these down in there. All right. And, if you don't have one, this is a perfect opportunity for you to create one, and make sure you're always looking around for those things. And when you come across them, write it down. Because I don't know about you, but I forget because I'm doing so much. I've started, trying to keep written notes. I know, like, for a while I have an iPad, I have my iPad that I use. I've got my computer. I can write all the stuff down, but maybe it's just because I'm older or whatever, or I like the feel of paper and a pencil in my hand. I just like to write it down. Whatever you do, that's okay. Just do it. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. All right. If you've got some questions about this or anything right now, go ahead in the chat section, post it in there. Hopefully this has been super helpful. While you're doing that, take a chance to opportunity to like this if you liked it, and make sure you follow and hit the notification button. But if you have any questions right now, go ahead and ask. Thanks, Woody. I appreciate it. There's so many out there, but these are some good ones, I think, that you can do on a regular basis to really help you out discover more things that you can offer, and continue practicing over and over and over again until you get better at it. And what will happen is you'll realize you have very specific, unique offerings that you can do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then when someone hires you and they have something and they say, hey, because this happens to me all the time, hey, I liked this part of your demo, and they give me the time, I know what I need to do because I've practiced that specific part over and over again, that I can recreate that in other forms. It's one thing to say a phrase with that specific way. It's another thing to be able to talk and say anything doing it the way that you claim that you can do. And the only way we can do that is through practice. All right, you guys. Well, it looks like we don't really have any questions, which is cool. That means I was nice and succinct. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful Monday. I will see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Take it easy, you guys. Bye-bye. Peace.